Thank you, Dan, for the reminder.
Yep.
You get fair credit for making sure I got it recorded. Welcome all. Thanks for joining us for the first night of Winlink Basics is basically all I'm calling it. I'm RJWY7AA. For those of you who don't know me, I'm halfway between Cheyenne and Laramie. And I'm the Section Emergency Coordinator and the Emergency Coordinator for Laramie County. We have integrated Winlink quite a bit in Laramie County in the last couple years. We've really got a nice group of people that have really have been using it a lot and pushing it, which is a nice thing to have a group of people that you can bounce ideas off of and or experiment with. If you're trying to talk to yourself, it's not very easy. Whereas if you got somebody else that is able to, you can go back and forth with it. It's good. So we'll try to build a little bit of a community here in Wyoming, hopefully, that can do some practice with Winlink. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. And I'm going to hit slideshow. All right, how does that look to you? I'm getting... That's just a single slide is all you're getting?
No, we're getting two.
Okay, that's what
we're getting the little one and the preview.
Yeah.
Or the regular one and the preview.
Let me... for some reason, I'm getting those, sorry. The only thing I've changed since 2 hours ago is I added another monitor, and I don't know if that...
That would be it.
Yeah.
PowerPoint on the main monitor will show what you just did, and on the second one it'll show just the slide. So you need to share the other screen, basically.
I just disconnected the other screen, honestly. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough.
I appreciate the help. How's that?
There you go.
Okay, great. Again, jump in if you got questions. We may or may not take them right away. But bear with me. This is going to be a little bit of the background on it. Winlink, when I first got started in it, probably 4 years ago, there's a lot of... there are quite a few things that people call something. One person calls it one thing, somebody calls it something else. In this presentation, there's going to be a few things, and I'll explain the things that I use my own nomenclature, and it's what I had to do to kind of get a block diagram of how it all flowed. So what is Winlink? It's basically email via amateur radio. So we can send, using the Winlink system, we can either send email over the internet using the Winlink system or via RF. Or you can use RF to send Winlink messages, email messages to the internet. So it can be a really powerful tool. You can do it on any band. One of the key things that's really kind of nice is you can send emails between Winlink addresses. So, and when we'll show you later, when you get into Winlink, your Winlink address, email address, is your call sign at winlink.org. And when you're inside the program, all you do is send to another call sign. So if you wanted to send me an email in Winlink, all you would do is type in WY7AA in the to area. You don't have to use the rest of the at winlink.org. Mike, I'm sure you know what an SMTP/POP/3 email address is. That's what somebody wrote for me. Basically a regular email address. You can send Winlink messages to a regular email address.
Yeah.
Is that... I'm not too far off on that?
It's just SMTP address. Yeah, the POP3 is an access method. A very popular one, but yeah, it's just an access method. SMTP is the official.
Right.
Yeah.
So the nice thing about Winlink is if you're working with somebody on the outside, this is familiar to them. There you can send. I send an email when my wife and I go camping up in the Bighorns and there's no cell phone reception. I send an email to my parents every once in a while just to say, hey, we're still alive. And it's familiar to them. They don't have to know anything special. So one of the things about Winlink, so it's a great way to send written communications. You get a laundry list of 12 or 14 things. Trying to send that via voice can be very challenging. So being able to write it down and send it means you're going to have a much greater chance of getting it to a different area, passed without any problems. Again, you're sending and receiving stuff in familiar formats. People are used to emails. And WinLink is very big and having a very extensive set of forms that you can, they update all the time. And it's easy to populate in a web browser, and it's a very smart system. You'll see in a minute that this is not a high-speed connection. You're not going to send a lot of data via WinLink. So what they've done is they've eliminated the format of the forms and just created the text. So when you enter text into a form, all you're sending is the data, and then when it comes out the other side, the other WinLink user has the format already of that same form. So it's much more efficient sending that information at that point in time. One thing I don't have a note in here, so this is one-to-one communication. You can send emails to multiple people, but it's still one-to-one communication. It's only going to go to the person that you've sent it to. So if I send an email to Dan and one to Mike, it's still one-to-one. I'm sending one to Mike, one to Dan. It's not, whereas something like a NBeams, that's one-to-many. So you're transmitting on, say, Olivia, and you send out a message, and again, I'm sending it to Dan. Everybody who's listening, everybody that's on that frequency and tuned into that mode will download that message. So there's a difference. It's we won't get into it a lot tonight, but one-to-one versus one-to-one, one-to-many messaging. And you can do all sorts of stuff. I've got listed on here that you can do UHF, VHF. You can also do super high frequency, the Arden, the 2.4, 5.8 gigahertz. I don't have any experience with that myself, but I know that's possible. Obviously, HF you can do, and peer-to-peer you can do that for direct communications without the internet. And of course, the zoom cuts off the bottom of the screen for me. So what are some of the limitations? The data rate is low. If you send a 120 kilobyte file, get a coffee. This is not fast. Think AOL in 1999. It's not going to be very quick. Obviously, if you're using there are some modes that are some modems that are faster than others, but either way, it's not going to be very fast. So the other thing is, the other key limitation, and a lot of people do a lot of work trying to figure out other things, it's a Windows system. There are some Mac and Linux offering some iOS and some Android as well. I'm not familiar, honestly, myself, I'm not familiar with any of them. I'm only familiar with the Winlink Express, which we'll show you tonight. So it's really a Windows-driven item. We do have some people that are familiar with some of the other systems. I think I don't remember if it was the Android. I think it's the iOS. We've got some people in Cheyenne that are familiar with the iOS app that's able to do it, but it's really primarily a Windows system. Of course, it's amateur radio, so all Part 97 rules apply. No encryption, no commercial traffic, and all the third-party rules. This is an argument that has been had and will probably continue to the end of the time about whether or not WinLink is encrypted. It's not obvious how you can. It's not encrypted. I can tell you that. I've read stuff. I understood some of it. If you go into the Winlink website, you can see all the messages that are being passed at any given time. There are ways to read all of this. It's just it's pretty obscure. It's hard to get someone else's message, but it's truly not encrypted. So there are some people that debate this quite a bit, but it is not encrypted, and we're not allowed to encrypt it, of course. Winlink Post Office, which is one that we'll talk about in a little bit. That's something that's only usable when you are within RF signal range of it. Peer-to-peer and radio-only modes require quite a bit of coordination. Like I say, we'll touch on that a little bit more in a bit as well. They're very powerful, but it is a little more work to use, especially the peer-to-peer. Again, radio-only is not one that I'm overly familiar with. This PowerPoint presentation was originally written for Laramie County area, so you get that in there. What we've been trying to do is get as many of our members to get proficient at using Winlink. What we're doing tonight. Just get proficient to using it, using the user interface. Not so much worrying about how to connect your radio or connect a radio even. Just be able to send and receive. Because even if you don't have your own system where you can send and receive via RF Winlink messages, with your own radio and computer and all that stuff, in Laramie County we have the capability at our ELC to send and receive messages. So even if you don't have your own Winlink station, if you know how to use the program, you can be useful. Or again, and I apologize, Mike, you are going to be you're the top of the Hollywood squares. You're in my top right corner, so you're getting picked on for everything. If Mike's there and he has his Winlink setup running, if somebody else knows how to use the program, Mike wants to go take lunch, somebody else can actually sit there and operate the program without knowledge of how to set up the entire station. So just having familiarity with the Winlink itself is pretty important. Winlink is not like riding a bike. If you don't use it regularly, you will forget it. There's tons of Winlink nets out there. I've gone down the rabbit hole. The biggest one is really Winlink Wednesday. They're run out of Virginia. They would like you to check in via RF. So if you're new and you haven't done it, we're not going to teach you how to do that tonight. But eventually we will. So they don't want you to check in via the internet. They get hundreds of people that check in weekly. It's quite a very well run operation. Another one, which we've run for a couple years now, is the Wyoming Winlink Net. It's the last Sunday and Monday of the month. The last Sunday and Monday, consecutive Sunday and Monday. So if the month ends on a Sunday, it's the weekend before. So it was last weekend, the 25th and 26th of January. And we'll give you some more info on that later on. You can check in anyway, and really all it is it's just an excuse for you to open up your Winlink once a month, send a check-in just so you keep your account going, and practice. If you want to, if you have multiple different ways that you can get into Winlink, challenge yourself, do something different. But we don't really have any questions or learning topics or anything like that. It's just a quick check-in. All right, now we're going to get a little bit of the nuts and bolts. This is one of those things where there's some things that kind of parallel here, and you're just going to kind of have to go through this for a minute, and then we'll give you some more information in a few minutes. These are the definitions as I read them from Winlink. The common message service server is basically the internet. It's the, and again, I'm going to use layman's terms. It's the servers. It's the backbone of the internet. It's you're connecting to Winlink via the web. So CMS is the common message server. The RMS, which is what a lot of us eventually, and the CMS is what we're going to practice with tonight, and we're going to show you tonight, and that's about as deep as we're going to go. Next month, we'll get more into the RMS and other things. So CMS is just the internet. RMS is, think of that as a repeater. It's a repeater that's a gateway into the internet. So if you send an email And so the RMS is going to be a physical location. It's going to be a UHF station that can take, local messages. In Cheyenne, Mike KE5VAI has a VHF RMS gateway in Cheyenne. So we're able to send messages to his gateway. They, from his gateway, get passed to the CMS, and now they're on the web waiting for someone else to download. And other people can download either through a CMS, the internet, or through an RMS. Next slide, we'll get a little deeper into that. Another way is the Winlink post office. This is fairly new. We also have one of these in Cheyenne. It is a RMS gateway that is not connected to the internet. So it's a local computer. In Cheyenne, we have one. It's a laptop sitting at our 911 center, and it's just an RMS gateway. So it's 145.020. You can send a message into it. The message will sit there. If I send a message to Mitch, W7HAD, it'll just sit there on that local computer. If Mitch goes and checks his messages on the web or through a regular RMS, he's not going to receive it. The only time he's ever going to get it is if he goes to that post office, 145.020, and checks, and then he'll get it. So it's a local kind of a store and forward system, if you will. And then peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer is very powerful and very tedious. We'll get a little bit further into that, but it's no internet. You can send emails directly from one to another. But everything's got to be synced up. You've got to be coordinated ahead of time. And then the last one that you'll see, and I don't have a lot of knowledge on this. Everything I've watched, this doesn't get used very often. It's a good theoretical thing. It's called radio only, and it's basically a method to transfer messages nationwide, really, without the internet. So if everything's working properly, and this is the last time I'm going to touch this subject because I don't know anymore and I don't think it gets routinely used. If I wanted to send an email message to my Elmer in Western New York through the radio only method, I would input my message into an RMS, and rather than going out to the internet, the CMS, it's going to forward that from one RMS to another, to another, to another, to another, until it ends up essentially nearby him, where he could receive it out of another RMS. It's a very interesting idea, but again, I don't think it's used very often. I'm going to go one more slide and then we'll take a quick breather. So just talking about this a little bit more. Messages that are sent from the internet, whether or not, and of course Zoom is covering up half of my slide. Bear with me one second. So if you send an email, a Winlink message, via either the CMS or via an RMS. So if you send a message to a RMS, think of it as a repeater. If I sent, we'll just use this as an example. If I sent a message via 80 meter Pactor, I'm going to send it to whatever RMS station repeater that I can reach. As soon as that station receives it, it's now sitting out in the servers, and it, again, Mike, if Mike wants to pick up that message, I sent the message to Mike, he wanted to pick it up. If he has access to another RMS station that's a 70 centimeter, he could pick it up that way, through a different modem, through a different band. Once you send a message, and once that message hits the internet, the sender and receiver get decoupled. You don't have to use the same method. You don't have to use the same band to receive it. The internet kind of cleans out all of that, and you can grab it from any RMS station that you can receive from. It doesn't have to be the same, HF or VHF or even Arden, something like that. So same thing, if I sent that 80 meter pack door, if I sent a message to Mike on 80 meter pack door, and he just used the internet, where he's at, the internet's working, he can just go to the common message server and download it. So that's one of the nice tools is that you can the send and the receive become divorced once your message hits the CMS. The Winlink post office, again, we've got one of these in Cheyenne, so we've got a lot of practice on that recently. Same thing to a lesser degree. Our Winlink post office, and this is where you got to bear with me. I'm going to introduce a few things that we haven't discussed yet, which will be coming up in a minute. For Winlink, our Winlink post office, it's only VHF, so it's only 145020. Again, if I sent Mike a message on our post office, he would literally have to drive up to the top of the hill so that he could have a RF path to get to Cheyenne to pick it up there. He can't get it any other place. The one interesting thing is our post office, the modem, we can either use packet or VARA FM. So that can be divorced. I can send the message to the post office via packet, still going to be 145020, and Mike could later on go and check his messages, and he could pick it up with VARA FM, again 145020. And then peer-to-peer, again, I mentioned that's very powerful, but it is, both stations have to be on the exact same frequency at the same time, and they both have to use the same modem. So this is something, and we've practiced this in Cheyenne. It really requires some coordination. So we've done it practice-wise with VHF. And the way we did it is we basically had a 2-meter net going at a voice net at the same time that we were doing the peer-to-peer Winlink. Because you really need to be able to say, okay, Dan, are you ready? I'm going to send you, I'm on this frequency, I'm using VARA FM, and Dan comes back and says, yep, I'm ready to go, hit send. And then you go ahead and send. If something went wrong, Dan can come back to me and say, that didn't work, send it again, something like that. You really almost need to have that voice communications in conjunction with the peer-to-peer to make it work effectively. It can be challenging. Again, it can do a lot of powerful things, but it can be challenging. So, all right. Questions? I know we got a little bit more theory to go here, but questions to this point on what I've covered, and I can get a drink. Okay. Now we get into, I won't say pictures, but at least diagrams. So that makes my life easier. This is where I got lost. Early on, I just couldn't wrap my head around everything. And some of the nomenclature, modem, I don't even remember. It's been so long since I wrote this. Different people use different terms for this. Just understand that these are kind of the 5 major building blocks. You need all of these, to get Winlink to work. So we're going to kind of tear this apart piece by piece. We're not going to go in order. So computer. Again, this is a Windows-based system. There are other options out there. We're really not going to touch on them during this. But again, hopefully we got a community that if somebody wants to go down the rabbit hole of Linux or Mac or something like that, maybe we can help one another out with that. So you need a computer. It's pretty straightforward. We're picking off the low-hanging fruit to begin with. So back to the system, and we're going to go to the other end now. You need a radio. What radio do you need? Well, a couple things. One, start with what you have. Two, find out what's available. If you're on HF, there's RMS stations all over the country, all over the world, really. So anything that, it opens up your horizon quite a bit more. If you're a technician, UHF, VHF, you're going to have to make sure that you have an RMS station nearby that can receive UHF or VHF, or a post office. And determine what bands you want to use. Again, HF, VHF, UHF. And then lastly, some radios are much easier to connect than others. You can hook up a boat anchor and you can do Winlink with a boat anchor. As long as you connected, it can do a single sideband. If it can do single sideband and you can somehow get that connected, which we'll touch on in a bit, it'll do it. If you've got a modern, I'm familiar with ICOMs. If you got a modern ICOM, life gets a lot easier because the interface is quite easy. So back to this. So we've hit the front end and we've hit the back end because we're all on Zoom, so we all got a computer. Now we're all ham, so we probably got at least our radio. The email client. This is what we're going to work with tonight. Winlink Express is really the primary one. There are others. We're not going to touch on them too much. The only one that I won't say familiar. The only one that I've heard of, and I know people locally in Cheyenne use, is WODE, I believe it's called. And that's an iOS email client. But it's basically the user interface. It's where you type your email. It's where you read your email. It's where you type your form. It's where you receive your form. It'll become very obvious, especially if you remember Microsoft Outlook. It's very similar layout to that. So again, that's a kind of an easy one. Now we're going to go to modem, and I'm calling it modem. I think this is the best description of it, but I think other people will call it different things. And it's basically the app. It's the thing that's taking. This is where I'm going to sound silly. It's taking the words that you typed in and turning it into the beep 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 boop that is getting sent out via RF. It's again, you're not going to get the real high technology literacy coming out of me, but the most common ones are VARA, either HF or FM, and packet. I think those are the most common. Telnet, I guess, really isn't a modem. That probably shouldn't be included in here because that's just going direct digitally to the web. But these are just different programs that convert the data into something that can be sent out via RF. AirDrop is an older program, still useful. I still see people, I've never used it myself, I still see people sending messages with it. Packdoor was very common with governmental entities. You'll still see that from time to time. So that's still around. Packet has been around forever and a week. That's the old AX25 packet that was used for years, the old bulletin boards and stuff. It's the exact same technology. VARA, both HF and FM, have kind of replaced almost everything. Packdoor used to be the monster because it had the best speed. Well, VARA is now fairly equivalent in speed. It has some nice features. I would really recommend if you're interested in getting into this, VARA is a nice one to work with. We'll talk more about it next month. It's a free program. There is a licensing fee. We'll get into that more next month. We've done a group buy. You can do a group buy to get the licensing down. Honestly, if you're just using it once in a while, what they do is they throttle back the speed a little bit if you don't have the license. But it's very usable in the free state. So I wouldn't get real worried about that. So then the last one, and I'm going too far because I'm clicking on things. Come on. Why won't it let me go back? Why won't it let me do anything? Let me go back there. Or we could go right back to the beginning. It'll let me go forward. Okay. And then the interface. You need to be able to get the computer connected to the radio. Again, I'm very familiar with modern ICOMs. I'm sure many other modern radios have this exact same capability. The radio has a USB port out of it. You just plug a cable in. Boom, you're done. You can't get much easier than that. Older versions, SignalLink, I've used those a bunch. They're kind of bomb-proof. They're kind of tedious in some ways, but man, they just work. Rig Blaster's an older one, I believe, but I know a couple people that use them. DigiRig, Dan and I were having this conversation. I know people that swear by them. They love them. I've never touched one, so I can't speak to them myself. And I've seen a lot of people pull their hair out, and some of us don't have much to pull out. So, and then TNC, that's still viable. The old TNC that was used in the 90s. And then Homebrew. People much smarter than me can connect a couple wires together and make their radio speak to their computer and go from there. The one suggestion that I have given many people, and I think this is a great way to do it, specifically if you're on HF. If you're doing HF, the easiest way, and we'll get into it a little bit more next month, is get work FT8. Get FT8 to work. Or I say that because that's the one that is kind of the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room. There's so many people that are doing FT8. Every radio that I've ever used, the settings were essentially the same between the radio and the computer for FT8 as Winlink. I've never had anything that I really had to make any changes, and the user group for FT8 is so much larger, and there's always somebody on, so you can always test it. Even if you don't like FT8, it is a useful tool for that reason. So, all right, so we've made the link. Computer, email client, modem, interface, and then radio. The modem, and it's been a while since I've done this or had a lot of discussion with it. That's where people get tripped up. They get confused about. Sometimes they'll confuse VARA. I don't even remember. It's been a while, but that's where I've seen a lot of people get tripped up before. So, just some quick examples, just to show you how this all comes together. If you're going to do Telnet, Telnet is the way that you go directly to the CMS. It's directly to the internet. We'll demonstrate that. But all you need is a laptop, the internet, and email or Winlink Express. There's no modem, there's no interface, and there's no radio. You're just sending messages directly to the CMS. And then the person on the other side can bring it down via CMS, or they can bring it down via RF through an RMS gateway. If you're going to send HF to an RMS gateway, here's an example. Windows laptop, Winlink Express, modem. This is kind of the typical. This is probably one of the most common, both radio and modem and everything. It's pretty darn straightforward. Again, you can send an email to an RMS gateway through this, and then the person on the other end can pull it down via another RMS gateway or via the internet. Again, so this person could send with VARA HF and a 7300, and this person could be using AirDrop and a SignalLink and a 706 and receive the message. Again, once it hits the internet, the sender and receiver, the method they use is divorced from one another. This is what we used to have in our EOC, was a Pactor modem. Pretty straightforward. If you're going to do HF peer-to-peer, which I've only done once or twice, again, now you have to have your modem has to be the same. Doesn't matter what your interface and your radio is, but your band, your modem have to be the same. So you could be, one person could be using a Rig Blaster and a 746 Pro. The other person could be using a 7300, but that modem has to be the same. So And then VHF, peer-to-peer packets, one that we've done quite a bit. You're always using packet. There are different programs that will create the packet. So if you want to do packet via a software, there's a free software out there called Uniform Zulu 7 Hotel Oscar Sound Modem. That will create packet via software, and you can use it on any radio, but it's still packet. So again, it's another one of those places where you can kind of get confused. It's packet is the modem that you're using. I've used that on my 7100 with a built-in sound card. The other thing is, and I should have grabbed this ahead of time, but if you've got a Kenwood, yeah, Kenwood radios have built-in TNCs in them, so they'll do packet natively. So there's several different Kenwood models that will do that, which is really nice. So you're still doing packet, but it's the TNC is what's creating that. So that's a really nice, quick way to do it. But these two stations could work one another, but it is packet that you're using. And then same thing, you could use another radio, a non-modern radio that has a different digital interface using the software. The UZ7HO is what's actually creating the packet. So questions, comments on kind of the flow through the system here? You're going to make me talk all the way through, are you? Yeah. Now Larry's the one I'm picking on now. he jumped up too quick for that. Okay. How to get started. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't done this in years, truthfully. So I went through and I didn't really have a good reason to create another account. So I went through and I kind of read up on it. We're going to show this a little bit. But basically, you got to get an account. And the way you do that, you don't actually sign up for an account. You download a client, which will be Winlink Express is what we're using. And in that app is where you will fill out the information. It'll get sent in, and then you get an account from there. You basically run it, and it'll follow it. The one key thing is to keep your account active. You got to open it up and use it every 400 days. So you got a little over a year, and people drop off all the time. So that's part of the reason why we have Wyoming Winlink Net, is just to get you on, hopefully once every 399 days, so you don't fall away. Kind of like I was talking about with Vara, Winlink Express has an optional $25 registration. You don't have to pay it. It's just a donation to help them. It's a nonprofit group, very large group actually. If you don't pay it, there's no throttling, there's no performance difference at all. The only thing is you're going to get a pop-up window every time that you open it up, and it just pops up, says, "Hey, do you want to, donate?" Hit no and move on. All right, waitlist, and they've changed the name of this, and I'll show it later. Winlink is very slow and has very limited data. So think about it. If you went out, Larry, you sent an email to, somebody in the internet world, somebody who has nothing to do with ham radio. They may not realize that it's not your normal email address, and they come back and send you an email with a 3 megabyte photo attached. Well, that's never going to happen. I don't know. I think basically it just drops. It just dies on the vine. So to prevent people, and it says here to prevent spam, but spam by Winlink standards. You want people that you're sending this to understand that don't overload. So you can send from any Winlink address to any Winlink address. That's no problem. And again, your Winlink address is just your call sign. To receive emails from the outside, you have to have them on the whitelist. How do you have them on the whitelist? You either have to put them on the whitelist ahead of time, which is via the Winlink website. We'll show you how to do that. Or you can send them an email. So as soon as you send an email to an outside, that automatically puts them on your whitelist, which I forget what they call it now. We'll get there in a few minutes. And there is a time limit on that. I forget what it is, but those will drop off as well. So they figure that if you send an email to somebody in the outside world, you're at least going to give them enough of a heads up to say, hey, don't splatter me. Because, again, if you're getting a 120 kilobyte message, you're going to be there a while. Trust me, I know. Ask Scott about it. And if you haven't noticed, I'm willing to throw anybody under the bus. I'm going to break from the slideshow for a minute, and we're going to pull up. Well, first we're going to pull up Wyoming Winlink Net. So if you go to the ShyY, go ahead. Oh, sorry. So if you go to the ShyY Club page, and of course this is going to be slow. On the front page, there's Laramie County Aries Races, and if you pull down, there's a Wyoming Winlink Net. That's how you actually get to the page. And there's just a little description, and it's basically a straightforward thing. Like I say, we do it the last Sunday and Monday that are consecutive in every month. We use a tactical email address, so you just address it to WWN. That's all you need to type in the to box. And to check in, all we're looking for is you to send in your call sign, your name, your town, your county, your state, what band you're using, and then what modem. I've got method listed here. So, if you're using VARA HF or VARA FM, if you are using Telnet for band, we just ask you to use web. And that's it. So, if I were sending in a message, I would just to WWN, subject Wyoming Winlink Net, WI7EOC, Bob, Cheyenne, Laramie, Wyoming, VHF, VAR FM. That's it. Hit send. It's pretty straightforward. And I will share this link in the chat. Accept list. Thank you, Scott. I knew, and I just looked at that today, and they accept list is what they're calling it now. So, okay. So that's the Wyoming Winlink Net. Let's go to, this is the winlink.org. It's not horrible to get around, but it's also not the most user-friendly in some ways. There's a little bit of information on this far left side. Where was it? Okay, it moved.
Don't you hate it when it does that?
I'm sorry?
Don't you hate it when it does that?
This was 2 hours ago. I'm not blaming them. I'm sure I screwed it up. The long and the short of it is the way to sign up. You don't go to the website and sign up for an account. What you do is you go to their winlink.org. Hang on while I'm at it. Copy. Paste. Trying to be efficient here. Okay. So, winlink.org, go to the downloads. And in the downloads, you're going to see sysops, users, and VARA. So we're going to be a user. You go in there, and at the very bottom, there's Winlink Express install. It's a zip file. It's a standard download it, run it. It's an executable file, whatever. Don't holler at me, Mike. It's an exe file. It's pretty straightforward to run, but that's how you get to it. So at this point in time, you haven't entered any information. Man, how many things can I have up at once? Uh-oh. Sorry, I'm just... Oh. I got too many things on top of one another, too. Just to make my life easy. All right, let's just cancel out all that. Okay, here is Winlink Express. When you download it or run it, this is what you're going to get. The first time, actually I'm going to close this, and the first time that you run it, I got too much junk on my desktop, trust me. And it didn't come up with a pop-up window. Huh. This is where you would get the pop-up window that says, you know, would you like to donate? You just hit no thanks, and it moves on really quickly. But you're not going to have anything in here. And the first time, I believe the first time you open it up, it's automatically going to come to the setup screen. I don't think you're going to have the option to do anything else, but don't quote me on that again. It's been a while. If it doesn't take you immediately to here, what you want to do is go to settings, setup screen. And basically what you do is you fill in your call sign, create a password. It's going to ask you to give your contact information. It's going to ask for a recovery email, you know, a regular email address in case you ever lose your password. Basically enter that information and hit update, and then what it's going to do is send, because you have to have a amateur radio license to be able to use this. So I don't remember how long it took, but you basically hit update. It'll send the request off to get you an account, and in some period of time you will get an email back, I'm pretty certain, to your password recovery email address, giving you information on how to get into it. So then you're ready to rock and roll. This is, and now I got to go back to my glasses, so bear with me. It's somewhat intuitive, but there are some definite roadblocks. Just going to start out real quick. If it's just you, you're only going to have one call sign up here. You will notice when I clicked on this, I've got a bunch of email or call signs that I manage. So there's a lot of them. So if you've got multiple call signs, that's where you're going to manage them. WY7HR is actually our club email address, or our club call sign, which we use. If you're going to add a call sign, you can do that here. This is basically the form you're going to see when you first open it up. We're going to skip over settings. We're just going to go right straight forward into something simple like message. So it's just this simple. Message, new message. W7WRO. Subject, hi Scott. Test. Okay, I created an email to Scott. Now you have to go and you have to post that to the outbox. So notice it doesn't say send, it just says post to outbox. Hit that, and all of a sudden your outbox just got incremented up to 1. Now that's sitting there waiting to go. And tonight what we're going to show you how to do is just to use Telnet. So here is the list of all the different, and they just made changes to this in this past week, just to mess me up. So you can do Telnet, Packet, Packdoor, Robust Packet, no idea what that is, AirDrop, VAR-HF, VAR-FM, Iridium. So those are basically all the choices, and that's just if you're going to send to an RMS. Those are all the choices. If you're going to do peer-to-peer, it's the same choices, but it's peer-to-peer. If you're going to do radio only, which again, I don't think you're going to do at least anytime soon, that's choices there. And now, Scott, you'll notice this just popped up. There's a post office selection. So if you want to send to a post office, you're going to use that. But tonight, all we're going to do is go to Telnet. How do you think you open the Telnet session? This trips people up all the time. Because this is a nice drop down. It looks obvious. Oh, okay, we'll go to Telnet. Now, where do we go? This open session is a button. It's just poorly done. So I'm just letting you know ahead of time, this is a button. Don't forget that. I click on that, and it just opened up my Telnet session. It's sitting here. It says ready. There's really no settings or anything that you need to... I don't know what any of this is. It never... work, it just worked. And all you do is hit start. And when I hit start, it'll give you a little bit of information of what's actually happening, and then watch the outbox. Start, connecting, one message sent, 188 bytes. Again, very small, disconnected. And Telnet is going to be by far the fastest way you're going to send something. So if you do something large, Telnet won't be too bad, and then you can exit out. And we now have a sent item and nothing left in the inbox. And one nice little thing, if you have something that's sitting in your outbox and you try to close Winlink Express, it'll actually throw up a pop-up window and said, hey, did you want to leave that in there? So there is some smarts to the system. Oh, Mike, sorry. You sent me a private message, and are you all seeing the battery and plugged in? Is
Yes.
that coming through on the screen? I apologize. I have the world's worst laptop. I've been suffering through that, and I'm too cheap to buy it. I'm too cheap to buy a new one yet. So, yeah.
I thought that was mine.
No,
Me too.
no.
Me too.
Again, I'm the appliance user. Trust me, I am not the technology guy. Yeah, I'm just suffering through it. All right, so we are going to... Oh, look at that. I think I might have mail waiting for me. So, there, I sent Scott something. I don't check my Winlink email on a daily basis. I check it once a week, something like that. So you never know. When you open up a session, you don't know what you're going to get. So if I open up the session, even if I got nothing to send, I just open up Telnet, hit start. Let's see if there's any... Oh, there's something waiting for me. This is an interesting little screen, and I'll show you how to set this up. If you notice, it says to hold unchecked messages until later, or permanently delete them. So, like if you got truly spam, you could just have... Again, if you're in an RF situation where you've got very low data rate coming through, if somebody sends you a 95 kilobyte file, and you're just not... You don't care. You don't want it. You can hold it off here, and if you can see, it's going to time me out here in a minute. So what this screen does is it allows you to download or not download things, and I started using that a while ago. I won't blame anybody, Scott, for sending large messages from time to time. So it's a way that you can kind of preview the message and know whether or not you're getting something large. So there you go. That's your message. Hello, Zoom 7.3. So again, that is a 301 byte message. So these are very small. A little bit, and I'm just kind of run through stuff as I come to it. If you have questions, by all means shout. One thing, once you start getting going a little bit longer, you don't really want to have that long email chain. If I'm going to reply to Scott now, what I'm going to do typically, the way I typically do it is I leave the most recent reply and I delete everything underneath it. Because you're just sending bytes of information that you've already seen, you already have. And again, if you're sitting out, in the middle of the night in a tent with a flashlight trying to send messages, you just want to sit there and watch this thing spin around and go. So just get rid of data that you don't need. So that's a good a rule of thumb to use. Let's go through the messages here. So, it's kind of your standard email, reply all, forward, delete, acknowledge. I'm not 100% sure acknowledge, but let's see here, some others. So we're going to get into forms a little bit. Forms is one of the more powerful thing, and I think, Scott, you're going to be available. I'm going to shoot you some more. Well, first I'm going to do a quick one. Let's go back to the website and go back to winlink.org. We go to My Account. This is where you can check on your account. So after you create your account, you'll be able to log in on the website, and this is where you can edit stuff if you need to. There is a place to check your Winlink messages on the website, so you can do it via the web. Here's the accept list. So if you look, and I don't know why today this thing keeps giving me this problem, but eventually if you hit OK, it'll come through. So if you look, Scott's email is the only one that is on the accept list for WI7HR. So I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to try to minimize that. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to send an email to myself. So rj1@gmail.com. Accept list test. Post to Outbox. Again, goes to your Outbox. Open up a session. Start. Went away. No more in the Outbox. Again, if we pull up in a second, of course it's going to be slow. In my Gmail, eventually. Alright, it's going to be extra slow. We're going to go back to the other one. You will see, if we go back to the accept list and refresh, because same problem with the site, but my email, airrj1@gmail.com, did I type that in correctly? Yeah, I did. It's just being slow. So I am now on the accept list as well. So anytime you send an email out to an outside email address, it'll automatically put it on the accept list. All right, you're going away. We're going to close you out. Hey, it showed up. WI7HR, and you can see it's WI7HR at winlink.org. So if I want to send an email to myself, I go to that address. And that's what I teach my parents. My parents live in East Tennessee, so a long ways away from Burgess Junction, Wyoming, and in the middle of summer, if they need to get a hold of me, they send an email to wi7aa@winlink.org, and hey, the furnace blew up, or whatever. So, and they know not to send me a picture of the blown up furnace. So that's a very key point. All right, we are going to go to give you a quick thing. So we're going to do new message. It's been a while since I've done this. Select a template. So you can do attachments. So you can attach a PDF, a CSV file, an Excel file, a Word file, a JPEG. But again, be prepared. Size is very important here. So select a template. Templates are very powerful, and you'll see there are a ton of them. Standard forms. There are California state forms, Canadian state forms, FEMA forms, general forms, Hawaii state, blah 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 blah. You can spend a lot of time going through all these. The ones that we use all the time, and the ones that I would suggest you get the most used to, is the ICS USA forms. These are the standard ICS forms. The 213, the 205, the 217, the 309, 214, those are kind of the common ones we see in ARIES. So we're going to click on the general message. This is the most ubiquitous. Everybody's going to use a 213 at some point in time. It's going to open up whatever your default web browser is. And you just start filling it out. It's just like a standard 213. I'm going to type, this is an exercise, and I'm going to be very quick on this. Zoom Winlink to Scott from RJ. Subject, hi. Date. I thought it would do, if you click, yep, if you click on it, it'll use the current date and the current time. Message, hi Scott. Scoot. Hi, Scott. Approved by RJ. Hey, look, it's already in there. Position. There we go. Now, go to the bottom, hit submit. To complete the form, click OK. It'll close, blah, blah, blah. So what it did is it took all that format and distilled it down into this message. That's all that I'm going to send to Scott. Because again, the key is the amount of data that you're sending. Scott, if you would, when you get this, actually you can ignore this one and just start sending me a 213 if you would. That would be a big help. So what I'm going to do is I'm sending it to Scott, and what his Winlink Express or whatever Winlink browsers he's using already has the format of that form on his end. By this, the title of this, it already knows what to do, and it's going to insert it into an ICS 213 on his end. But we don't have all of that weight of sending the actual form along with it. It's just literally just the data. So I'm going to go to the outbox. If you look, so our size is 1800 bytes. So it's gone up quite a bit, but it's still, if you were to send a PDF of a 213, it's going to be quite a bit bigger than that. So we're going to open session as a Telnet. Hit start. It's going to go through. And Scott, if you would just let us know when, and you notice that took a little bit more time that time, 5 seconds. I mean, again, Telnet, you're going to wish for the days of Telnet if you're out doing this HF in the field. So, questions while we, I'm assuming Scott's still here. I apologize. I'm making assumptions here. There he is. Okay. It's good to have somebody on the other end. Questions, comments to this point? This is really the bread and butter of what we're doing. Go ahead.
How many $1 million are going to have wrapped up in this if I set this up?
So everything you just saw here, if you've got an internet connection and a computer, you can do exactly what we've shown tonight. And I think you got in a little bit after what we've been trying to do in Laramie County is get people to this level. So even if you don't have your own computer, radio, blah, 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 you at least can be an operator, and we can provide you, you can work with someone else and use their system. If you want to set it up, and this is what we're going to touch more into next month, is getting it to the RF. It's really going to depend on what you use for a radio, what you're trying to do as far as if you're trying to do HF or UHF, VHF. It's basically the same. If you're doing any sort of digital mode, you've already got pretty much all the hardware. All the software is free, or you can pay for it, but it's not. You can do it all for free. So.
I've never done digital a day in my life.
Okay.
Do you have an
HF rig?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got one.
Okay, I was guessing, but I did not want to assume. I'm assuming they're all going to be older. I'm assuming they're all going to be older rigs.
No, not all of them. I've got an 891 and a 706 Mark II G.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure if I can put a telephone interface in my old National NCX5, I can probably do something with that. Right.
And really, this is the one that I use, is just a signal link, and we'll get into this more next month. It's the way to connect. That's what I use with my 706. And these are, you find these used all the time. But that's really what you need is the computer and that connection, the way to connect the computer to the laptop. Let's check our messages, because I just see the chat window popped up. So this is what it's going to look like if somebody sent you a 213. So again, he's getting a little bit bigger. He's 2200, because Scott's good at sending good-sized messages. And I'm going to harass Scott a lot here. So I'm going to download checked messages. It's going to come down. It took 10 seconds. Ooh, we're getting big now. And if we go back to our inbox, so what's going to happen is if you notice there's a a yellow and there's an attachment and it has not been opened or viewed. The first time you click on this, it's automatically going to open up the web browser. And look at that. So all that information, and we'll show it to you in the Winlink message in a minute. So it looks like if I hit print, this is going to print out just like a 213. If I hand this to my EM, they're going to understand this message because it looks like a 213. I'm going to close that. And now we can actually notice this is changed color to blue, which basically says it hasn't been opened or viewed directly. So if I double click on this now, this is the data that physically got sent across. And because Winlink Express has the form on the other end, it already knows how to format it. So if I didn't want to, if I double clicked on this, if I go back 2 hours later and there's that 213 that Scott sent me. I'm going to double click on, that's not the 213. What you do is you click on this attachment and boom, it comes back up into your whatever your web browser is, and now you can hit print or forward or whatever, and you actually have a 213. So that's a very powerful tool. And again, if you go into new message, select template, global templates, there's a ton of them. So again, your ICS forms are going to be the ones for Aries that you're mostly going to, but there's weather forms, you can spend hours in here. But these are the ones that you're really going to see on a regular basis.
RJ?
Yes, sir.
So go back to your select template.
Yes, sir.
And okay, so I see a plus there by WY7 HR templates. So I assume you can make custom ones. Is that correct?
That is correct. And so we're barely gonna scratch the surface on Winlink.
Yeah,
but
no, that's cool.
This is the account that I run Winlink, Wyoming Winlink Net from. So I created my own. So this is the Wyoming Winlink Net announcement, and so I'm going to edit it. And if you notice what it does, it's a little cryptic. So this is 2. So these are all the people that it gets sent to: the subject, the announcement, the message, and this is the message, and that's that. You can look up how to set these up fairly quickly.
Okay. No, that's cool.
And so the great thing, and it's a good example. So if I'm going to send out an announcement, all I do is double click on that, and voila. It's pre-populated, all the people that it's going to. It's 1-1, and this next one's going to be 1-2-0. I change a few things and hit post to outbox. I'm usually doing it on Telnet because I don't feel like, I have done it from the field before. I did it from Labrador, Canada this year. So, you can be anywhere. But it is a powerful way to do, especially if you're doing something like this. So, I've never created anything like the ICS forms, but you can do some interesting stuff. So I am going to. So notice it hasn't been posted. So let me post it. So it hollers at you. It's pretty smart. It hollers at you if you didn't post it. And now I'm going to try to close, and it's going to say, "Hey, you've got an unsent message. Do you want to leave this session?" So I'm going to cancel. And I'm going to delete that because I don't want to irritate everybody by sending it out 3 weeks early.
Now, RJ,
go ahead.
That template that you were going to send an announcement, how many bytes is that one? Because I had a lot of information on there.
Yes, it did. It should be in deleted items. Yep. 1,071. So, I don't think that because it had a lot of people on it, I don't know as that counts as part of the message. So that might be, I'm not 100% certain, but that's what I'm guessing. So, but if you notice, you're already got the right idea. You're thinking about, hey, how big is this? Because again, once in a while, somebody will send you something, Scott, and It's time to go up, walk the dog, get a coffee. Poor Scott.
Okay, I have a forms question if you got a second.
Absolutely.
So I noticed that when you did the pull down, there were a lot of forms on there. And I know from stuff that I've done with, sorry about the background noise, I've done some stuff with JS8 spotter using forms and stuff. And there's typically like 3 or 4 forms that you use all the time. Is there a way to kind of create shortcuts for that, or do you have to pull it up and run down through the menu every time?
I do not know that one. I don't, right off the top of my head, I don't see anything. But no, I'm not familiar. I've always just gone, I know, yes, there's a lot of stuff, but honestly, ICS USA forms for Aries is really all I use. So that's, no, I don't know about that one. That's an interesting one.
I see, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. At the bottom, I saw your own templates. I'm just guessing if you went into one of those and you hit the copy button and then pasted it into your own templates and gave it a different name, you might be able to accumulate them there.
So I wouldn't be surprised. So the one thing that you'll note, and nothing popped up today, but one thing that'll happen quite routinely when you open up Winlink Express, you'll get a pop-up message, even if you've got a registered version. So you'll typically get the, hey, do you want to donate? Just click out of it and you're fine. But then within a few moments, you'll get a message saying there are updates to Winlink Express. And that happens every couple of months. I think the latest build came out about 10 days ago. So that's not all the time. But the forms, every time the forms get updated, which is fairly common, I would say once a week you'll get a pop-up message that says, hey, a form has updated. And you just hit OK, and it takes a second. It downloads the current version. So that's how they keep things current with whatever, if FEMA changes something, and you saw all that list of all the different ones. So, if be good if I click the right button. If the Canadian forms changed a little bit, I don't know, but if you made your own, you probably won't get the updates. That's the only thing I would caution you about. But don't be surprised when you do open up Winlink Express on a routine basis. You're going to get, hey, X amount or some forms updated and go from there. So it's pretty straightforward. I did want to just touch on. Go ahead. Was there one more?
Hey, RJ, I got a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, no
I had
problem.
to put new computer and everything all kind of went down at the same time with this meeting.
I understand.
I just put WinLink on this other computer while we were doing this. Now, how long does it take for them to come back from the setup?
That one I don't know. I think it's fairly quick.
Okay.
It's been several years since I've created an account, unfortunately, so I couldn't. I didn't have any accounts to make, so if I remember correctly, they're within a day or so. It's a very large organization. It's a very it's all volunteers as far as I know, but it's a pretty dedicated group, and they seem to be pretty on top of things.
Okay, and then another quick question too is once you get it set up on the computer, you got to go through any configurations to get it to talk to your radio, like FT8 and all that?
So the generic statement I'll make right now is if your radio, if you can do FT8, your settings are going to be almost identical on all of the rigs that I've run. I've run an Elecraft, a bunch of ICOMs, an Anytone, and a couple others I've tried out, and honestly, I don't know as I've ever made it. If I can make it work on FT8, the actual settings for the radio and the computer have been spot on. So it's a good way to practice it. So I just wanted to show you a couple things. So this click in dig through this stuff. I'm not going to read you everything. I'm going to give you a couple that I'm used to. The display list of pending incoming messages prior to download. I like that one. It pops up and says, hey, here's the 9 messages that you've got. Again, if I'm out camping for the weekend and the Wyoming Winlink net happened to be that weekend, and I got a bunch of stuff coming in, and I'm going to be home on Tuesday, I'm just going to say hold that stuff, and I'll do it when I got Telnet. So there's a lot of different things in here. I'm not gonna dig through a lot of stuff, but that's a real good one. Other than that, it's pretty. There's a couple of, again, this open session catches a lot of people. It doesn't look like a button, and when you start using other things, you're just gonna, if you don't remember open session, that's going to be big. One other thing that I'm gonna kind of talk to you about right now. It doesn't matter because the default is a Winlink message. This is the button that causes more problems than anything else. If you're going to send a peer-to-peer message, you have to change this every time to a peer-to-peer message. And now, this wasn't the case a week ago. And Scott, you're going to love this. They've added a post office message. So if you're in Cheyenne and you're going to send a message, everything else is the same. But if you're going to send a message to the post office, you have to change that to a post office message. And I don't know what that does. I don't know on the backside why that matters. Because again, as of 10 days ago, if you were sending to the post office, you just left it as the default Winlink message. We need to test more on that. But this is going to be one of those things that's going to trip you up if you're trying, once you start getting into these other things. So don't forget that's there. It's easy. It's challenging because this is one of those programs. There's a lot of information in front of you, and a lot of it you can ignore. But there's a couple things that are going to be really important that you can't pass up, and that's going to be one of them. So,
well, I have a quick question.
Absolutely.
We just saw when you sent those messages, they went really quickly because they were via the internet. If you're on your radio, how long would it take to get one of those, do you think?
So it really depends on several things. One, what modem you're using. Vara HF. If you're doing HF, Vara HF is probably the fastest of the HF modes. It's going to be, for those short messages, there's a little bit of a handshake that happens when you start to connect to an RMS station. You're going to be in propagation mode. You need to know your own HF. If it's this time of night and I'm trying to hit Colorado Springs, I'm going to probably use 80 meters. Well, I'm going to connect. I'm going to send out a request. Hey, Colorado Springs. There's going to be a handshake where it says, "Hey, I'm here. Hey, you're here. Good." Now we'll start to download the messages. And honestly, those really small messages is going to be 30 seconds or something like that. If you get anything to size, is when I've had messages that took 12 minutes. So you don't want to be using 100 watts.
Okay, I realize distance and everything, but generally speaking, what band seems to have the fastest messages? Can you generalize?
I don't think so. So I'm going to say this as a generalization. HF bands, I don't see a difference. Meaning, 80 to 10. VHF and UHF are usually faster.
Okay, that makes sense.
So bands, I will say, are different. But I don't see a lot of difference as far as like in the HF world. That's another thing, and it's a little tip that I'll suggest is when I am truly remote, I have no internet. I can't, and we'll show this next month. Is that there's some propagation tools that it can use to suggest what stations and what band to use. You still need to know your own propagation, how things work, but it'll give you some suggestions. If I've been out for a week and I don't have any internet, so it doesn't know what the SFI is and the sunspots and the whatever, what I do is I will fire up FT8 and I'll make 10 quick contacts. And I will see, okay, I worked FM06, I worked EM78. Basically, on 20 meters, I'm working into the southeast. I see that that's basically where I'm bouncing to. So what I now do is I go to 20 meters and I look for an RMS station that's in Georgia or North Carolina, something like that. And that's how I use FT8 as a propagation tool. So generically, I'll say on HF, I don't see a lot of difference. I'm sure somebody's done that test, but it wasn't me.
Yep.
UHF VHF is going to be much faster. From
Yep.
my house, I'm at 7,600 feet. I can hit with a tenth of a watt. I can hit a UHF RMS station on the south side of Denver, and that's the strongest. It's line of sight. It's 100 miles, but I can do it with no power, and there's no noise, so it just goes. It rocks. So Vara FM, UHF is where you go. The one other thing I will suggest, and I didn't mention this back in the, I didn't close it, but I'm going to go back. I touched on. There's there's Telnet, there's RMS gateways, there's post office, and there's peer-to-peer. Think of it as a hierarchy. If you've got the internet, use the internet. In an emergency situation, you got the internet, use the internet. If your cell phone works, use your cell phone. Think of these as kind of a hierarchy. If the internet's not working where you're at, and you can get into a UHF at my house, if the internet's working in Denver but it's not working here, I'm using UHF to hit down there because it's going to be the fastest way to get in. If that's not working, I'll use HF to get to, again, Georgia, say. A local post office is actually a very powerful way. It's a very powerful tool for local communication, so that's actually as efficient as any other RMS, but it's just constrained. The area is restricted. And then peer-to-peer is tedious. It's very powerful, but everything's got to be lined up. So kind of use this as a hierarchy. You don't want to go automatically to peer-to-peer because, Charles, you and I got to say, okay, I'm going to be on 1402 whatever, and and then there's going to be a CW contest going on, or you know what I mean? It just think of it as what's going to be your most efficient method, and work your way down from there. So I am going to stop sharing screen. Are there any other questions? And I'm going to shut off the recording if there's not, and we can sit around and chat. I hope this was helpful to some of you.
RJ, I got a question. I've got a question. If you're using HF, VARA HF, when you go to select the frequency, does it give us suggestions on where link would be? Like it does on packet, VHF packet?
So I'm going to stop for a second. And then I'm going to answer that because that's going to be stuff we're going to work on a little bit more next week. But I'm going to drop this off here.